So what's happening, Coach? How's everything going out there?
Well, you know what? We're working our tail off trying to get a first down out here in Laramie, and excited about our game against UNLV. It's opening for conference play, and I think our conference right now is really stacking up well nationally, and we're excited about playing the Rebels.
You've been out there for a while. I just want to kind of get your take about Wyoming and what it's all about for the people that don't really understand. There's so many cool things out there. What is it like from your perspective and living out there?
You know what? It's been a great 5 years, and look forward to many more years. The University of Wyoming is unique in the fact that we're the only four-year school in our whole state. We're a sparsely populated state, but there's only 560,000 people in the whole state. But there's a real come-together attitude, and we have a saying, we're one Wyoming. But it really is truly the spirit of the West, and it's something that I've really embraced as a head football coach.
What are you doing in the off time? I know there's not a lot of it right now. We're in the middle of the season, but what about in the summer, with your family? What are you guys doing?
Well, you know what? It's kind of appropriate for Wyoming. My wife and I have horses, and we ride a lot. We do a lot of things that we embrace the outdoors here, and we certainly have enjoyed our time, and we like our horses as well.
I'm going to be riding some horses when I'm out there too. What pointers do I need to know? Like, what do I have to be aware of?
Make sure you hold on. If they take off, you better realize you're on a 1,200-pound animal and it's not a pet.
Is there somebody, I got to have some words or techniques or things that you say? Like, what do you do when you're riding your horse?
Whoa, pull the rein.
I guess we'll figure it out on the fly. But, that's another thing, too. And what about in the surrounding area of all the different things? I know it's probably a little bit of a drive, but you got some pretty amazing, scenery and things out there that, again, people don't really know about. What are some of those things?
You know what? What's great is we have a wonderful mountain range that's less than 30 miles away. My wife and I will do some snow skiing up there. 15 miles away on the other side is a really great area that we go horseback riding. And then just along with that, so many beautiful things in our state. Two of the top national parks in the whole country, Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons, are within our state as well. But what's really neat about our state is the people. There's a can-do spirit of being out west, where when we say we're the Wyoming Cowboys, we have true cowboys here. And so they're not the urban cowboys or driving around wannabe cowboys. They're the real deal.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And I remember talking to you about this a while ago. We came out there probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But for you, coming from Nebraska and then North Dakota State and Laramie, Wyoming, it all is kind of similar, right? I mean, you really haven't had to you haven't gone from like the big city to the small town or the small town to the big city, right? It's really been a nice transition for you.
No, I think what's really important in college football, you hear the term, sometimes it's overused, you talk about fit. And when you really know thyself as a head football coach, there's only going to be certain places that I would fit in, and there's only going to be certain places that are going to embrace how we run our football program. And I really always believe this, that a football program needs to reflect the fabric and the culture of the people of the state that it represents. And so this has been a great fit for us. And we're embracing Wyoming, and I really believe this state has embraced our football team as well.
Yeah, you've had close to a sellout in the last couple of home games. So what I like about it is that it's a destination, right? I mean, it's something that people are planning on doing. They come to the game, they make an effort, they plan it out. What is it like, in those places that you've been with the Nebraskas, the North Dakotas, and here, where they make an effort and we're going to the game? You know what I'm talking about in some of those places where there's not.
What was interesting, when I first got the job, one of my first weekends that I had available, I hopped in my pickup and started driving around the state and saw what these communities are about, and realized at that time it's not a decision to come to a game at War Memorial Stadium. It's a commitment. And, we have fans that will drive 6-7 hours to come to our games. They love the Cowboys. And so unlike some other maybe more ideal locations where somebody can just on the day of the game hop up and drive down and go to the game and be home in 15 minutes, that's not the case here. And so that even allowed me to appreciate our fans more.
When you were getting started in this and coaching and the places that you've been, did you have a specific spot in mind? Did you wanted to go to a certain place that had these type of things, or were you willing to go kind of wherever the job opened up?
Well, if you looked at my resume when I was younger, I transitioned all over the country. At one time, it's almost like the credit card companies were trying to track me down because I was moving every year and a half. But what became apparent after a while when you become more comfortable in your skin is where you really want to be. And those are decisions that you have more of an ability to make when you're a head coach. The University of Wyoming had recruited me when I was in high school. And so I always had a fond place in my heart for Wyoming. Our family had vacationed out here. And I can remember the Cowboys when I was in high school went to the Fiesta Bowl. So it was always embedded in the back of my mind that this school has done it. Why don't we return the Cowboys back to one of those big bowl games again?
Yeah, it's going well too, and I don't think really people understand some of the additional things that you have to go through to make that happen, right? I mean, we've talked to a bunch of coaches across the country. You agree with like the staff and then the weight room and the facilities and all that kind of stuff, and how much that plays a factor into the success of your football team. And then the fan just sits back and goes, "What's the deal?" It's like a lot of stuff out there.
What you really find out, there's people on the outside that just assume a head football coach is the only way that they're going to be successful is by calling more plays on first down and throwing to the tight end more or whatever. And sometimes that's the case because a coach can come in and win a couple games, but typically those coaches are using schools as stepping stones. I've chosen to come here to develop this program, and to do that, there's a foundation that you lay, the culture in the locker room. What kind of guys are you recruiting? Your recruiting matrix. What are you doing to develop these guys? I can tell you this, we're graduating our players. We had the highest GPA in Cowboy football history last year. We've had close to 2 sellouts at our first opening home game. We opened up with a great win against the University of Missouri. But all those things happened because of a collective effort by a whole lot of people in this state that really occurred 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, the stuff that you have to do outside of the games and like the atmosphere and the family atmosphere. I know, well, you have 4 children yourself, right? I mean, how much does it, with the family that you have to be there for your players, not just on the field? We can do that all day, right? X's and O's.
Right.
I mean, these are, human beings. I mean, you've probably had to really be there for them, your friend, your father, their coach, all those kind of things, if you will, right?
We've had it. And, I would say a great majority of my colleagues around in the country, you choose to go into coaching because you have a passion for helping mentoring young people. And when you mentor young people, not everybody's going to be a storybook story when you start to recruit them or how it ends up. And so there's all kinds of situations that you deal with. You're working with families, and you have 118 guys on your team, and you have 118 families. And so, there's probably not much that's come through my door that I haven't heard before. And that's through 36 years of coaching. But, I can tell you this, I've not gone to work a day in my life yet. And, we have a passion for it. We get up in the morning, we drink a lot of coffee, and go out and coach some football.
We do that too. My partner, Reedy, and I, we're always out there getting coffee. And he says that he can drink coffee late at night and it doesn't bother him. He can still go right to sleep. What about you? Could you do that or no?
I don't know. It's probably true. It was interesting last night on a radio show. They were talking about hobbies, and I talked about a couple of other ones. And a lot of people around town see me in coffee shops a lot. They say, "Is coffee a hobby for you?" I go, "No, it's an addiction."
Yeah, exactly. What are some of the other things you guys have done? Like you talk about, like outside of football with the team, and have you taken them anywhere? What do you do? When it's not season. I know you have a strict routine now, but
we certainly do. But our coaches, not only as a head coach, but our assistant coaches, have really thrown themselves into getting to know these players and spending time with them off the field. We have not done the out-of-the-box things like brought some guy in from SEAL training or something like that, but really spending time with them is really going to be important for us, and we're going to continue to do that. I once was told by a wise football coach, and I won't say who it is, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, definitely. We've heard that before for sure. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. And when your locker room too, how do you feel like your locker room is with the guys? They got to be able to kind of police themselves, right? And do it together without always the coaches, talking to them, right?
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about that, but there's not a college coach I know out there in America that if the phone rings at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it's usually not a good sign. You're going to have situations. I think it's leadership within the locker room is important. When situations do come up, that's where you're really paid for your leadership as a head football coach, how you deal with those situations.
How about developing some pretty talented quarterbacks in your day? We know where you've been and who's
Right.
gone through your program. What's it like when you get a guy like that? You know he's going to be an NFL talent.
Well, when you recruit them, you don't know for sure whether they're going to be NFL talents. I do want to note Brent Began is our quarterback coach and our offensive coordinator. And he's the guy that's really gone through and vetted a lot of these quarterbacks that we've had. Somebody would say, well, you have a one quarterback that starts in the NFL as a rookie. That may be lucky. Well, then when you have two, I wouldn't say that's luck. That's a little bit of really good evaluation by Brent Vegan and development. Our system is set up that it translates well into the NFL, and so that's why a lot of the GMs have noted what we're doing with our quarterback. The curve that these young men are encountered with is not as steep when they come from a system like ours.
Yeah, of course, Carson Wentz and Josh Allen, just pretty amazing. There's no doubt about it. It's got to be fun watching them, on Sundays too. Not only with their play, but I'm sure they appreciate what you've done for them as human beings, right? To have the whole complete package.
Right. What a lot of people they see this grown, mature man. I'll never forget when I saw Carson on Monday Night Football against the Bears and how he responded, or see what Josh is doing as he goes out. What people don't realize is just the relationship you built when you recruited them. They didn't have a beard and they weren't leading an NFL squad. They were young guys that were trying to find their way in college. And these guys were not 5-star recruits. I mean, they were not 1-star recruits. Those were guys that no one else really recruited, and see their progression has really been heartwarming.
Hey, just a couple more quick things I wanted to ask you about. You grew up in Lincoln, of course, and what your feeling is from there, and with Coach Frost now and what he's doing, and I don't know, I'm just where does that hold in your heart?
It's a special place because that's where I went to school, and I think anytime it's your alma mater, I think Nebraska's gone through so much transition over the year. Through the years, and very few people understand the dynamics when Coach Osborne had the program running at a really high level, what the intricacies were, and to have Scott coming back. He was our quarterback. He was a scout team quarterback when I was on defense, and then later on he was our starting quarterback in '97 when we won a national championship. He's the right guy for that job. And I know they're playing the Buckeyes this weekend. I want to wish the best to the Huskers.
All right. Well, we wish them the best, and you guys the best too. Final thing about your game against UNLV, point of emphasis. I hate when I say keys to the game. We know you can't turn it over, and you got to convert on third down and all that. What can we expect on Saturday, or what are you trying to tell these guys?
Well, really, what I think is going to be important, a point of emphasis is our turnover margin. When we're successful, we're a ball hawking defense, and we've done a pretty good job taking care of the football. Those numbers, the statistics, are going to go back and forth as far as everything that y'all break down. But I think a real key to our victories have been when we've been +2 to 3 in the turnover margin. And when we do that, we put our offense in scoring position. When we haven't, it's been somewhat of a challenge. And so we need to take care of the football. We need to take that ball away from these Rebels.
All right, Coach. Hey, always great catching up with you. Looking forward to being out there, and wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for the time.
You bet. Bye now.
All righty.